Did you hear about our new sponsor, Learn It? One of the best ways to support your team is by investing in their growth through practical learning experiences. And that's exactly what Learn It delivers. Their short, live workshops focus on the essential human skills we all need, like empowering others, managing change, and team collaboration. As a Speak with People listener, you get a free 45-day trial for up to 20 people. Start today by heading to learnit.com/speakwithpeople or click the link in the show notes and start your journey to investing in providing great growth for your team. Welcome to the Speak with People podcast, where we believe that healthy communication is the key to unlocking your leadership potential. We are the go-to resource for leaders looking to greatly improve their communication skills, whether it's one-on-one interactions, team settings, public speaking, or digital communication. By improving these skills, leaders can create stronger connections and drive positive change within their organizations. Each and every episode, we sit down with experts from various fields from around the world, just like you're grabbing a coffee with them, to dive into real, practical conversations. Our goal is to help you transform your communication skills so you can lead more effectively, build stronger relationships, and make a lasting impact. So go grab your favorite drink, settle in, and let's learn together. Well, how do you turn clients into lifelong advocates? What if the secret to long-term success wasn't exactly in the numbers, but it was truly about understanding what matters most to clients? What would happen if we really earned that kind of trust? Well, welcome to the Speak with People podcast. I'm so excited that we are jumping into this topic today. This is going to be absolutely huge. We're going to explore how do we communicate in a way that builds trust, that builds lasting relationships with our clients. And so I'm super excited because a few months ago, I find myself in downtown Pittsburgh. As you know, listeners, I live in Tampa. Even in January, it is still a little bit warmer. And so I'm walking to a restaurant and I get to have dinner with our guest. And it was such a fabulous conversation. I love the range of everything that we talked about. And at the end of it, I thought, boy, I need to have him on the podcast. Toby has 25 years of experience in financial services. He's built a career around understanding his clients' values, needs, long-term goals. We're going to unpack how we can move beyond just transactions and focus on relationships as a part of building our business. Toby Carlin, welcome to the Speak with People podcast.
Thank you. It's great to be here. It's good to see you again.
Absolutely. Well, I love dinner.
It was a cold day to walk around Pittsburgh. That's for sure. That evening was chilly. Yeah.
Yes. That steak made up for it, though. James really.
It was fabulous.
Yeah, he blessed us.
I always tell people the dinner was great, but the company was even better. So I really enjoyed the time I had with you. So.
Well, thank you. Well, hey, for our listeners, before we hop into this conversation, why don't you just dive into your story a little bit? Who you are, what you do, and what's kind of got you to this place?
So, wow, I kind of cut my teeth coming right out of college in banking, of all places, and was doing marketing for a teeny tiny bank in Erie, Pennsylvania. And back then they had these things called collective trusts. They didn't have mutual funds, right? So I got an opportunity to help in the implementation team on converting collective trusts over to mutual funds that the bank sub-advised and that kind of thing. And absolutely loved the idea of investments. Quickly thereafter, this was probably going to give my age away, Jason, but this was probably 88, 89, right around there. And was just fascinated with the investment side of it, the trust side of it, helping people build wealth. And started kind of thinking about where I wanted to take my career, right? Kind of went from there to another big bank in Cleveland and oversaw all of the marketing of their investment side, right? And started to interact with more financial advisors because they had their own captive broker-dealer, and got the opportunity of a lifetime. I wrote the external distribution plan for the company.
Oh, wow.
And they were all looking around going, okay, now what? And I'm like, I don't know. Don't look at me. I'm a marketing guy. I'm like, I get paid to write and sell and that kind of stuff. They're like, well, you do it. And I'm like, Okay. And they said, here's your corporate card. Everything you did in the plan, we want you to go do. And so I got on the plan. And next thing I know, I'm in San Diego talking to LPL about getting our mutual funds on their platform, talking to Schwab about getting us on OneSource, back across the country again to Ohio and getting us into some of these retirement platforms like Nationwide, Mass Mutual, and just kind of like baptism under fire, my man.
Yeah.
And it was fun. I was starting a family. I have 5 kids, and I I always told people I'd get home Friday and reintroduce myself to my family. But it was great. It was a great experience, but it took a toll, right?
Yeah.
As a person of faith, as you know, I mean, it was really difficult to kind of place all that onto my wife at the time, and I kind of just started thinking, you know what's the next transition into this thing? And through my relationship with Schwab, I kind of found myself being offered an opportunity to do wholesaling for them.
Okay.
14 states. It wasn't bad enough that I had the whole country. Now I'm getting smaller, right? So I'm
Okay.
like, okay, I'll do that for a while. And if they had 100 million in assets under management through Schwab Institutional, I met them. So I really started talking to a lot of advisors at that point in time, and really helping them, allocate their client assets, right?
Yep.
So, and the more and more I kind of interacted with advisors, I was like, that's really where it's at, right? It's helping the people actually towards their goal. And I'm hardwired, the youngest is 6, to help. I'm just hardwired that way. And I'm like, okay, so all I'm doing right now is influence an advisor who's going to help their client. Why don't I do that? So I kind of hopped into doing wealth management for a couple of firms, and then found myself, hey, I want to do this full time. And I jumped into, with Jones, and now I'm with LPL, and it's been a great ride, because now it's funny, is like you get in your 50s and things are all lined up. This is really what my calling was, right? As far as my vocation.
Yes.
I kind of feel like I'm really now doing kind of what God designed for, so to speak. And I'm going to talk about faith, and that's just me,
Absolutely.
So hopefully that's okay.
Absolutely.
But I feel that I've really I'm following that path now, because I really live by the whole thinking behind this, is that people don't really care how much I know until they know how much I care.
Yes.
If that makes sense. And that's really, really what I try to convey most with people, because they're people. They're people with real issues. They're people with problems. They're people with families. They've got, if you think about everything that we do in our life, we're all about provision and protection of our family, right? And I play a huge role in that, and it's pretty cool, And when you kind of peel it all back and think as an advisor what it is I do, I am helping people provide and protect their family. No amount of money can offer complete protection, of your family, but it certainly helps along the way in making people feel secure, right?
Wow.
And it's all about, to me, it's all about understanding those values, right? About people. And so that's kind of how I ended up where I am. And that's kind of catches us up to date where I met you.
Absolutely.
So, anybody who's an advisor, if they're in it for that, it's one of the most fulfilling, meaningful jobs that you can do. You're doing a good job when you get invited to funerals and weddings.
Yes.
I mean, it's really cool. And I'm having a coffee. I hope people don't mind. It is Friday morning at 9, but I need some go-go juice.
I love it. I love that. I mean, because the word advisor, right? Like you get to be there with, conversations with some of family's most, intimate, important conversations about future and protection.
Yeah.
Okay, so many things that you brought up in your story that I just I have to point out here for a second.
Okay.
First of all, I love, going back to the 80s. Toby in 88, could you have even imagined where it would be in 2025, the banking industry, what you do now? I mean, is it just like mind
No,
blowing?
no, it really is. I was a kid back then,
Sure.
and I mean, it was like, you know, having people trust you at the age of 23 or 24 years old to, implement a multi-million dollar strategy, and I'm bouncing all over the place. And here's a true story. I hated to fly back then,
Huh.
right? But my faith walk is a lot different now, and I don't mind getting on a plane at all now because I know I'm settled. I know I'm
Mm,
good, right? And it's interesting that as your faith matures over time of where you get to, but for the longest time, I think I fought God's plan because I thought I knew better, so to speak. Now I know that the more you fight the plan, the more you get off that path, and the more you get off that path, the contentment in your life isn't there. So I guess surrender is the word, and I live my life that way.
well, you're in good company, because I think the Bible is filled with people who were trying to figure it out on their own, and then they
Yeah,
finally got to that place. I
yeah.
mean, what a beautiful journey.
And I think I told you I'm a certified Kingdom Advisor,
Yes.
which is also it's called CKA, or Certified Kingdom Advisor. It's a Christian financial advisor, and I want to make sure the audience is clear. Christian financial advisor is not better than any other advisor, right? It's just different, right?
Right.
I've integrated my faith, I've integrated biblical principles into how I give advice, whether somebody is, a believer and has a faith walk or not, right? If they don't even know I'm doing that, because at the end of the day, my calling is simple. My mission is simple, and I encourage every advisor to have a mission. What is your mission? My mission is simple, and I can communicate it in 5 seconds, right? I help people through biblical principles make the wisest financial decisions they can make in order to grow their money so they become more generous.
Ooh.
I've just learned in my life, especially as I get older, right, is that generosity in our country is missing.
Mm.
Um, Wealth in this country is held by few, held by many, but they they don't really give it away. I mean, they hold on to it like this, and when you hold on to it with a close fist
Yep.
like this, you know, you know what that does to your investment risk tolerance when you're holding on to your money and you have a fear of loss. You know what that does? Makes you hold on to it. So you're so worried about market volatility. You're so worried about losing. When you start to communicate to people that you came in naked and bare and you're leaving the same way. Everything you got has been a blessing. Whether you believe it or not, it's been a
Yep.
blessing given to you. Given to you.
Yep.
Yeah, hard work matters, but yep, at the end of the day, it's a blessing. So I'm trying to work with people to get them from this to holding their hands open, right?
Ooh.
And
Ooh.
and it's really important.
Yeah, it goes against your what you think is rational thinking, but the more generous you are, in turn, it's just crazy how you end up with more at the end of the day. It's just
Yeah.
an incredible kingdom
I,
principle.
I mean, I get this asked all the time, like, okay, what makes you different as a financial
Yeah.
advisor? I'm like, well, when I talk about, the CKA, the Christian Financial Advisor aspect of it, I said, what makes me different? I said, I'm probably one of the few advisors going to hold you accountable to your lifestyle spending. Do
Ooh.
you monitor your lifestyle spending, right? There's 5 short-term uses of money. We all know it, right? There's your lifestyle. There's your taxes that comes out of your pay. There's your debt. There's your generosity, right? And then there's your savings, right? It is all a factor of 100% of your revenue or your income coming in every month.
Wow.
And if your lifestyle expenses are 75%, some other things are suffering, right? It's 100. So if 75's out there, it means your generosity is like this, and means your savings is like this. And well, if you have an expanding debt pile, well, that's going to affect your lifestyle.
Yep.
certainly going to affect your savings, certainly going to affect your generosity. And I'll tell you what, as an advisor, I don't recommend anything I'm not willing to do myself, right?
Oh, wow.
I did this on myself a few years ago, and I just I tell people, let me see your bank statement because I can tell you what your financial priorities by looking at your bank statement in less than a minute, right? So I did it myself. I pulled out my bank statement, and on there I'm like, Starbucks, Dunkin' Donuts, Walnut Grill, Juniper Grill, Jersey Mike. So the list goes on of everything I was spending my money on it, and I added it up, and I'm like, do you realize you're spending $1,000 a month on coffee and going out?
Yep.
Coffee's free at work. What are you doing? So I took that as an opportunity, right? Because I'm looking at my lifestyle expenses, and I said, well, you can give a little bit more to your church, right? So I took that $1,000 and I said, I'm giving 750 of it away to my church every month. The other 250 is going in savings, So don't. Best advice for advisors: don't recommend something you're not willing to go do yourself. And you can't be a steward. You can't be a steward of other people's assets unless you're doing it yourself, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
wow. You are taking us on a masterclass here this morning. I love this. This is so incredible. Go back for a second because you're weaving all of these great truths in. For most client focused leaders, professionals, advisors, they're trying to build relationships with clients. What do you think some of their biggest misconceptions are of building trust? Where do you think they're going wrong in the beginning that they end up learning?
I can tell you what I don't do, right? I don't lean on the advisor role as a technical proficient. That's what I do. Like I'm not the guy behind the curtain pulling the rods and the levers and anything like that. I believe in kind of full transparency and education in the process of working with clients,
Yep.
right? But when I do not place the bells, the widgets, the investments, or anything like that as my primary, value proposition, right?
Yep.
I mean, hey, there's no shortage of information out there and in order to improve your financial literacy. There's no shortage of it,
right?
Why people come to advisors is because they know left to their own devices, they probably won't do anything, right? Unless they're completely self-directed. And even at that, all of my clients are experts. They're just not experts in what I do, right? So, you might be an expert teacher or an expert, pastor or an expert this. None of that I do. Right. So, I try to lean on understanding the client, their values, what really matters to them. Right. Because if I see, let me give you a perfect example of just me in action. Is that okay?
I love this. This is great.
Okay, cool. So I had a woman come in, 73 years old. She's kind of new to me through a referral. And, she came in and, she's, former military, was a nurse, retired now, but she came in and she had a, $2 million TOD account, taxable account. Right. And she's like, I want you to do something with this. And she started leaning down the road of kind of what she wanted. And through the process of asking a simple question, we got to kind of what the answer was. And I said to her, dear client, what is it about money that's important to you? And I stopped talking, right? She goes, well, security. I said, okay, what is it about security that matters to you? She goes, comfort. And I walked her up this flight of stairs by keep asking her the same questions about going into those values as much as I can. And at the end of it, you know what the real issue was with it? She wanted to leave that to her sons. It was actually wealth transfer that was important to her.
Wow.
Right? The money came, she started talking about the money came from her mom, and then she took it over. So she stepped it up in basis. And I said, well, I could do what probably 90% of the advisors out there are going to do. They're going to look at the portfolio. They're going to say, oh, I can do it better. right?
Yep.
And, they'll probably tell you, we'll manage you out of that $500,000 gain over time, blah, 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 blah. I said, that would be good for the advisor, right? Because they could charge you 2%, 1% on it and get 20 grand a year out of a $2 million portfolio. I said, but that isn't really what you're looking for, is it? She goes, not really. And I said, okay, so let's talk about maybe a strategy that could. And that led us into life insurance. And I got to be honest with you, I'm not a life guy. I'm not a life insurance guy. But when listening to the client and what she was trying to do, and she was trying to get it from that account to her son's, right? And where taxes matter. And she agreed with me. Taxes they're symptomatic of God's provision, right?
Yep.
And we should pay them with gratitude and all that stuff. So she agreed. We don't need to pay more than our fair share. And in Pennsylvania, where I'm at, we've got a pretty painful inheritance tax here. And
Yes.
she was aware of it. And we started talking about it. She goes, oh, you mean we could transition out of this and you could work my taxable gain out and we could just do a 10 pay into this life insurance policy that I have forever and I have longevity in my life. And I'm like, yeah, all of that. we got to it because of one question. What is it about money that's important to you?
Wow.
Otherwise, where the mistake would have been made, I would have tried to force, an investment management or advisory account on her. She might have gone with me. She might not have gone with me. But at the end of the day, it wasn't what was right for the client, right?
Yes.
And then so we would have been far apart in our relationship right from the beginning, right? And here's the good thing. She's got another couple million someplace else that she wants to talk to me about simply because I asked the question and then I listened.
Yes.
So don't be in a hurry, all you advisors out there listening, to want to show off how much you know and how sophisticated you are with all of the wonderful financial planning techniques that are out there. Because, listen, I'm assuming everybody's probably pretty good at that, but not everybody's really good about listening and understanding what's important for the client, because you can't ever put yourself before the client. And when you're doing most of the talking, you ain't listening. So,
right.
That's really important. I mean, a lot of us like to talk just because we want to look smart. And yeah, if I'm ever the smartest guy in the room, Jason, we're all in trouble. But I mean, at the end of the day, I like to pride myself on listening and hearing, right? We got 2 ears and 1 mouth for a reason.
Yes.
So, but
wow.
I think that's one of the bigger mistakes that advisors make, is that they're in a hurry to show how good they are, how good their numbers are, or how all this other stuff. When at the end of the day, the client really just wants to know that you care about them.
Yes.
Right? And you want their success is lock in step with your own success, right?
Wow.
You treat people great, you have a great career.
Wow. Holy cow. You've given us so much gold here. One of the things, going back a minute here, when you talked about listening, just the asking the great question and then walking them up a flight of stairs. Do you think that comes over time? Is it an age to wisdom issue? Can younger advisors learn that by just taking the time to do that, by watching somebody in practice? What's the best way to learn that practice? Because that's gold.
Oh, well,
I mean,
you know what? I told you this. I told you this before, that even professional baseball players take batting practice, right? And I always, every time I meet with somebody, I take away and debrief with myself. But absolutely, young advisors can do this, because if you really want to, okay, here's why. Really, the epiphany is this: when you think about experience in the investment management world or whatever, it's actually an experience in actually doing it. So a younger advisor doesn't have experience in doing that. But what a young advisor can have experience is the art of communication, right?
Yeah.
So the best way to develop relationships is to engage in the art of communication, right? People don't come to me because, oh my gosh, he's such a great investment manager. They come to me through referrals because hey, you should go with my guy. He really is good to me.
Yes.
Right. And that's what matters. And good advisors can return phone calls before the end of the day. Good advisors can send thank you notes and be human. It isn't that hard to do this job and be a good human being, right? Kind, caring, loving, all of the above, right? I mean,
Wow.
and
Yes.
I don't want people to look at me as an advisor. I want them to look at me as a counselor, a teacher,
Wow.
you know, an advocate.
Yeah.
I mean, the advisor role, if you think about this, think about an iceberg, okay? When you think about an iceberg, how much of an iceberg is sticking out of the water? About 10% of it,
Right.
right?
Right.
That's the technical competency of the job, right? That's the putting portfolios together, writing financial plans, doing the retirement income strategies. That's the rest of it, the 90% of the relationship is below the water. It's knowing what makes that client tick. It's knowing and listening to them and knowing that they got a grandson that's going off to college and they want to help them. It's this what you and I are doing, Jason.
Yep.
It's having a cup of coffee basically together. And I always tell people when I sit down and meeting with them, I said, if I make this feel like an appointment or a meeting, like a dentist or a lawyer, I've failed. So you tell me if I'm making this sound like this is a painful thing. It's not. This is a visit. We're having a visit.
Yes.
And through this visit, I'm going to get to know you. You're going to get to know me. And then we're going to tap into all this stuff packed into my brain. And I'm going to tap into all that stuff packed into your brain. And we're going to come up with a great partnership because at the end of the day, it's a partnership.
I love it. Okay. So how do you balance that then with, you've got many advisors, many sales folks, many agents, who are listening to this, they've got their boss above them going, how many calls did you make? How many meetings did you have? All that. So how do you balance the human side taking time? Because I hear a lot. I'm in Fifth Third Investment office in Naples, Florida, a little while ago, last month.
Yep.
And a manager comes up to me and says, I just don't, she said, I love all of this stuff that you're talking about. I want to be more people first communication skills. I want to be able to do that, but I just don't have time. I'm racing from meeting to meeting. And then I sit down with a client and I'm trying to get all, and I'm like, okay, well, you're going to have to figure out how to balance that. So what would your advice be to, someone who's trying to balance all of that, but then still have the time to be present, to listen, to ask the great questions and not be distracted, with the goals and, the KPIs and, all that kind of stuff?
Well, I mean, let's face it. If you do all the right things, the numbers take care of themselves, right? So
Wow.
So I don't worry about the numbers at all. I mean, we all have bosses. Ultimately, at the end of the day, we're all accountable to God. But I'm more accountable to my clients than I am my boss.
Wow.
And
Okay.
I make sure he knows that, right? So, but I guess I would consider myself to be incredibly lazy organized. Okay. I use this amazing invention called a calendar.
Is that new? Is that AI?
And I use it and I put on there. I do block timing, right?
Yep.
When my assistants are trying to like maybe put somebody in, they'll see right on my calendar is like client calls, right? Prospect calls. I typically try to do them early morning and late afternoon, right? And if I need to, I'll stay a little bit after 5 because some people work. My client demographics tend to be, kind of like that pre-retiree and retired. I do a lot of work with younger people, kind of like pro bono stuff because I really want them to understand the whole lifestyle monitoring of their money and things like that. Because it's just, to me, that's just another way of being generous, right? We can give our labor, give our influence, give our finances, or give our expertise, right? So that's one of the ways I can be generous with my time is helping those folks. Do I get anything out of it? Absolutely. It's not money, but I get a lot out of it knowing I'm kind of paying it forward. But you need to make time for this. You cannot afford not to make time for this stuff. I have in our systems, I get a list on the side on our client work system that says birthday's coming up.
Yep.
Right? How hard is it to call somebody up? Happy birthday, because I know 2 or 3 days in advance. And
Yep.
guess what? If I know I've got 10 client meetings or 5 client meetings, it's more realistic on a day before, that's, on their birthday, I'll call them the day before. And I'll just go, hey, I wanted to be first. Happy birthday. Do you want anything? No.
Yep.
I'm just calling you to say happy birthday.
Yep.
Love you. I'll talk
Yep.
to you, for our advisory review, but I just wanted to say happy birthday, man.
I love that. I love it. It's the big rocks, right? Like making sure those are the most important. I was in Minneapolis a couple weeks ago or something, and an advisor comes up to me. He's 32, so okay, younger for the field, and he goes, "I got 213 clients in my book. There's no way I can wish them all happy birthday." And I said, "Hey, even the president of the United States makes birthday calls. Like you can absolutely do that over the course of a year.
Yep.
What is that? It's a dozen a month, 2 dozen a month. You can do it. Like just make it important. Put it in the big rocks. I love that you brought that up because those things, right? They will build those trust receptors with your client.
It's a 2-minute conversation, and if I need to kind of like at that point, if I know I have a client review with them coming up, I'll be like, well, I can check the box right now if I got the time. I say,
Yep.
hey, you got a hot minute?
Yep.
Let's go over your portfolio. Let's, hey, catch me up. That's the greatest thing you can ask somebody.
Yep.
Hey, it's been a minute. Catch me up. It's open ended. They can start sharing with you what they want. I think people try to take the humanity out of this job because it's numbers.
Wow. Okay, go back for a second because I love that you're working with younger generation. Would you give us just maybe a few, they could be super broad, but just things you're learning about Gen Z, millennials, and, you're a dad with kids, I would imagine,
Yep.
kids in that range. And so, just curious.
Everyone else is different.
Yeah, love talking kind of, future stuff in this podcast, especially with those generations, because we're going to blink and Gen Z, Gen Y, the generation below them are going to overtake all of us. I mean, it's just coming.
The number one thing that I have learned, right, is that my generation, and I'm going to say even yours, Jason, they understand this one concept, right, that you can be financially content at any income level. Okay? Our generation also understands this basic concept, right, that living within your means is not a sacrifice. It's financial maturity. It's financial responsibility, right? This is why I really try to focus in on, the younger folks about financial contentment can be achieved at any level. Because remember when I talked about the 5 uses?
Yeah.
What's the number one thing you think they get out of line in that pie more than any of us?
Ooh.
It starts with a D. It starts with a D. Big banks all have them. Credit card debt, right?
Yes.
So I'll just, in the interest of time, I'll lob it up there for you.
Yeah, they're using it for their iPhones and their MacBooks.
Yeah, here's what happens. It's real simple. Kid gets out of college. My son, Riley, just got his first job, right? Big bank, mortgage-backed securities. He's excited. $53,000, his first job. When I got out of college back in the late 80s, you know how much my first job paid me? I'll make it real easy. $17,500. Okay? These kids won't even get out of bed for that kind of money, right?
Right.
I mean, you can make more money working at the gas station, than that. But what they get into is they go, okay, I make $53,000. It's more money than anything. And then they start settling in there, and then everything comes at them. We live in this economy that I call attention economy, right? Every social media aspect, every newscast, everything is competing for our attention, right? And this stupid thing right here is behind it all.
Yep.
That's my gal. But it's behind it all. So everybody's competing for your attention. And so these kids are up against a tidal wave of influence on their financial contentment because they make $50,000 a year and they're here, Jason, and they go like this. Yeah, but I'm entitled to this. No, this God bless you with $50,000 a year. Now let's learn how to be content with that. And when you learn that at a young age, you've already answered what I need to know when they get older in retirement. What
Wow.
is your number? What
Wow.
do you need to be financially content? And what happens with these kids is that they're being influenced that they, even though they're making a pretty good living at that age, they want the Instagram influencer, all this nonsense that's out there, and they're only seeing the filtered life of what these people want you to see because they want your attention, and they fund that entitlement with debt. And as debt gets bigger, their overall lifestyle goes down.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Well, we spend a lot of time on financial contentment with these younger kids because it really is true. I mean, when you start to monitor how you spend your monthly revenue money coming in, your income, it just breaks the power of money on you.
Yes.
Because you start to understand little basic concepts. Here's number one. Working with a young person and they have a good job, if they're not in a 401k, they don't understand that, deferred compensation, throwing money from your, out of your pay into your 401k is one way you can affect your tax pie. That's life, right? I'm deferring income, less taxes, right?
Yep.
So I try to coach them in on the blocking and tackling of life, right? And that you can be happy with whatever God has provided to you at this point in time, right? Oof. Because boy, we are being pushed on that us as Americans is more is what it's all about, right? That our success is directly linked to our income. Wow. In other words, a lot of people live by thinking, my self-worth is my net worth. Yeah. And is that the biggest bunch of nonsense you've ever heard in your entire life? But people think that the more money they have, the more successful they are.
Right.
I don't know. I know people with a lot of money that aren't happy. I know people with not a lot of money that are perfectly happy. What's the difference there? The person that doesn't have a lot of money answers the question, and how much is enough? Right? How much is enough?
Wow.
And when they can answer that, as they start to make money, and this is where I see the magic happens for these younger people. If you've answered the question that you need, I need this much, and now the next job I get or the next promotion I get, I'm now making $60,000. Oh, there's a $10,000 margin in there, right?
Yep.
Gross, but after taxes, it's still a healthy margin. Now what can you do? You can be more generous. You can save more, right? Oh, well, I can pay more debt now, right?
Yep.
What's the number one thing you think of when a young couple gets married and the spouse starts to enter the working world, right? With the full intention of saving more and or spending debt. So spouse goes to work. What happens, do you think? Lifestyle expenses go up because they make more money.
Right. Everything,
and the
just
problem
keeps going.
Starts over.
Oh, I love it.
Right.
I love it.
So those are the things I try to do, and I really try to do it from a counselor perspective, and not from, you must do this, you must do that.
Yep.
No. I mean, everybody wants to be counseled. People don't want to be, mandated to do anything, right?
I love it.
It's amazing how many people I work with will go, hey, my son and daughter-in-law are going to have a baby. Would you have a conversation with them? And I'm like, what do you want me to do? They're like, could you just give them the Toby's, 5 uses of money and what they should be looking at? I'm like, I'm happy to. And so I have way more clients than that. The example of 200, but I find the time to do that.
Yes.
Right? Because that keeps me sharp. That keeps me caring. That keeps me in the heart, right, of where I need to be.
Wow. I love that. Hey, as we wrap up, this has been, a masterclass. You have opened up so much been so generous with your time, wisdom. When you hear the phrase, speak with your client, not at them, how do you try to live that out? I mean, I've taken 2 pages of notes, Toby. I could pull out, 15 things that you've said that apply to that. But just here at the end of our interview, would love to just know, as you process that phrase, speak with your client, not at them.
Yep.
What's the way you try to do that?
Well, I mean, everybody will say, ask open-ended questions, of course, right? What I have noticed, and me included, right? I mean, if you're going to build a bridge and really address a problem, right? If you want to speak with your clients, you need to build a bridge and not a wall, right? You build a wall by telling them they're doing something wrong. You do something like that. The best way to get people to open up is to admit you made the same mistake, because I have, right? People tell me they're divorced. I am divorced, right? I can feel that. I know how hard that hurt. Not financially, emotionally, right? So I'll walk across that bridge and I'll be like, I have been there with you. Tell me what's on your mind. Yes, of course, listen more. All that makes sense, but come from an actual caring heart.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that.
One thing about Jesus that made him an incredible man is that Jesus leaned into people. He didn't lean away. He didn't lean back. He leaned into conversations, right? And lean in.
I love
Best
that.
advice.
I love
lean
it.
in and care. Yep.
Listeners, as you know, we're building this online communicators library. And so we ask every guest some rapid fire questions so we can keep filling it with great resources that kind of spark your transformation. So Toby, when you think of a speaker that you listen to that you just go, oh boy, they challenge me, they fill up my cup, I can't wait to tell somebody about them. Who is that speaker?
I'll tell you what, I never thought I would say this in my entire life, but I've been listening to the Mel Robbins podcast.
Yes.
I really have, and I absolutely love her. I love her. She comes from a caring heart.
Yes.
I mean, even the way she goes, hey, it's your friend Mel. I mean, I absolutely have been eating that up.
Yep. She's amazing.
If I could give a book recommendation, everybody should read. It should be required reading from the time you can read, is Traveler's Gift by Andy Andrews. I have given that to more people. I've given it to my kids with personal notes in each one of them about what that book has meant to me personally, about accountability and that forgiveness is free, but it's worth millions. Be a person of action. It is an absolute. It sounds like a self-help book that I'm describing, and it is, but you would never know it because it's all wrapped around historical figures. And you will walk out of that going, yep, there's 7 things key decisions that I can make because I live my life based on accountability, right?
Yep.
I am where I am to this moment. I believe I'm right here in front of you because of the choices I made. Case in point, I accepted that dinner invitation, didn't I?
Yep. Incredible.
I rest my case.
Incredible. Well, this has been, this has been amazing. I love when we get to a place where the conversation is so powerful that so many notes are taken. And so, Toby, I can't thank you enough for your time, for your generosity, for sharing your heart, and for what you just said, for building that bridge and taking us on the journey that you've been. So, thank you for being a guest on the Speak with People
Happy
podcast.
to do it, my friend. And when you get back to Pittsburgh, please look me up. I'd love to have another steak with you.
Thanks for tuning in to today's episode of the Speak with People podcast. It means the world to us when you share this episode. Thanks for liking, subscribing, or following the podcast. That really does help the podcast get into more ears and into more leaders listening. Also, don't forget, we have 2 exciting resources for you. The first is go to Facebook and join the Speakers Group. This is a community designed for leaders who want to grow their communication skills. Also, go to speakwithpeople.com/skills library to access the Communication Skills Library. It is an online resource chock filled with resources that will inspire you and transform you and grow your communication skills. Thanks again for being a part of the listening community. We cannot wait for the next episode.